Hello and welcome to the Beth of Fresh Air. It is February 27, 2026. Got a heck of a day here. The winds are up to 80 kilometers an hour, really unsettled, kind of strange energy, but the show goes on. And this is something that I find always grounds me. And I feel better after these than before, if there's any comparison to be made. Today, I have the great pleasure of hosting Micah Ellars, who I've been getting to know in the House of Free Will and through a course that I'm creating. And it's a fun discovery. I didn't want to use the term Renaissance man because it seems so like clichéic or flaky or something like that. But it really is the only words I could find to describe Micah, being an example of somebody who's gone in a lot of not disparate different directions or chaotic different directions, but in that really implies wholeness and a kind of integration. We have been geeking out in the House of Free Will, talking about Gurdjieff and Jung and doing some very deep discussions that I hear people are actually appreciating and able to get. So that's really cool. So before I bring him on, Micah is a filmmaker, a teacher, an actor. He's done a lot of acting and directing coaching. He's also a health coach who specializes in Love Your Liver. So we're going to get into Garrett's work and how he came across that. Definitely a truth lover, one of us, if I could say, in the truth and freedom movement, although who knows if I even belong anymore. And he is a devoted student of his own psyche and preparing himself for freedom is kind of what it looks like to me. So I'm paraphrasing. And without further ado, I will just say hello to Maya, who's in the room. You know Maya. Great to be here. Glad to have you. So here comes Micah. Hello and welcome, Micah. So great to have you here.
Great to be with you, Beth.
Fantastic. Is there anything more that you'd like to say by way of introduction? If I missed anything, last night I learned your first degree was in graphic arts. So
Yeah. No, I think you did fantastic, and it was you had me at Renaissance man. That's I wasn't expecting. That was pretty funny, but I like it. I'll take
right.
it.
Yeah, I was searching around for other ways to say that weren't such a cliche, like well-rounded. And that was one of the first things I was going to say. I'm not saying it to just blow smoke up your butt and make you feel good about yourself. That's not my way, actually.
Mhm.
And I don't even like the word integrate. That was another one I struggled with, what to call this, given that our subject is wholeness. And we live in a society that has, I think, by design, made us feel to be cut up in a lot of different pieces. You know, whether that's in our areas of interest or our career or our direction in life or our political orientation, or, you know, everything is designed to make us feel to be one thing and not the other thing. Not to mention a life of most people have gone through a great deal of trauma to one degree or another, and that actually does effectively split the consciousness. And it leaves, say, you know, I was talking to my AI. I'm doing this quite a bit, just running things through the filter of it and getting some reflection and actually trying to teach that AI some deeper things. And it's amazing how, you know, so it started saying things like, oh, you know, becoming whole, and how do you become whole and take all the pieces and put them back together again? Well, we already know from Humpty Dumpty that it doesn't work. If that's what nursery rhyme actually means or not, I don't know. But the integration implies there are pieces and bits, and we need to go gather them and bring them all together and glue them up. It's not like that. So I'll just start by saying my paradigm is that wholeness is something, it's non-negotiable. It already is. We're not here to create it. But if I go right to a bottom line before we get started, it's about dissolving the experience of being all split up and all the results of that so that we could just have the wholeness that is.
Well said.
Thank you, Micah. So yeah, we're going to go in a few different directions. Hello to another one of our Creator Code participants, actually, who's in the room, Quietly Content Bear here. And we are live, by the way, on Facebook and YouTube and Rumble at the same time. This all gets uploaded to my podcast channels after the fact. Mike, are you still looking for a link to share out?
I think I found it for
Okay, perfect.
just your YouTube live. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, good. Didn't want to leave that hanging there. And so your life, from the amount that I've got to know you so far, really is an example of being well-rounded and developing in a number of different areas. So can we start with that? Like, what are the areas of your life that you've focused at your study and your practice and your work in?
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe a good starting place would be kind of the avenue that led me to work with you, which would be um, a couple more than a couple of years ago. Yeah, about 2 years ago or so. I I've always been into like health and wellness and being willing to be outside the mainstream paradigms on that. I've done all the different healthy diets and fitness and all kinds of stuff. And I wound up discovering Dr. Garrett Smith's work and his Love Your Liver program. And it's really like the whole toxic bile paradigm. And that was really challenging at first. It was like shocking and hard to integrate because I had been like kind of like a paleo animal based person for a while, so like telling me that certain things like eggs and dairy might not be the best thing for me and liver and stuff like that. But eventually I warmed up to that, and I wound up getting invested into him and his program and working with him, and so did my wife. And then um, she was really into Carl Jung at the time,
Mm.
and she still is. I mean, but she was studying Jung and doing a lot of Jungian like introspective work. And I heard Garrett have you on his program. He highly endorsed you, talked about his personal experience being amazing with you and stuff. So I looked into it. I mentioned it to her. She jumped right on contacting you and hiring you. And then later, uh, she was so impressed. She gifted me with a series of sessions, which is how we met. So that came from from that food, nutrition, health and wellness thing, which is really like with Garrett, his brand being like the nutrition detective. It's really like a deep first principles appreciation for like what's actually happening in our bodies metabolically, nutritionally. And I resonated with that, and I could tell very quickly he was an authentic person. And that's something, I guess, one thing that I've learned is like I really gravitate towards people when I feel like they don't have like the BS filter is not in need. I'm like, oh, this person's just speaking genuinely. So I was really impressed. And then I've been, it's almost been like a 2-year journey on doing his diet and working with them, the blood tests and hair follicle work and all that. So that's like one avenue, but I've always, for, I don't know, over 20 years, that's always been a passion of mine. And I helped people many times, like with their health. And, because to me, that's like, what are you without your health? And like, why wouldn't you want, that it's crazy to me that like we live in this world where that's an afterthought to everyone. I would say most people, it's like, what are you talking about? Like they don't think about any of those consequences, or like the agency that you have with it. Like you don't have to just do what everybody else does. And so that was like sort of, I mean, to super summarize it, many, many years, lots of work in that, and just like passionately trying to help people. But pretty much all the like health coaching I did was like just to help people, people you care about or you're mentoring anyway, stuff like that. And it's like, you realize, oh wow, you're suffering from this issue. I actually know you can fix that, and most people are really kind of shocked that there's even a solution outside of like big pharma or something. So, but that was the first one. And you asked me like some like to name a lot of them. So that's one. Yeah. Uh,
I'll quickly say hello to another few that came in the room, Mary and Luniverse, and yeah. So every time I turn around, Micah, I see a new aspect of you. Last night I was complaining about the graphic I was making for today's stream, and I'm like, I bet he has a degree in graphics too. And you're like, yep, that was my first degree.
That was an intuitive hit for you there. That was funny because I never told you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I went for my second 4-year degree was like I went into filmmaking, and that's been the main area of work that I've done for over 20 years, and a lot it's all the aspects of that: commercial video, music video, working on sets or shows or features, just as a freelancer, director, producer, DP kind of person. You have a lot of variety. Like you don't know where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing, but so there's that aspect, and a lot of teaching through that. Taught at uh, I've lectured at a few film schools. I taught regularly for like 10 years at one, and that so there's that teaching experience, and then that turns into like mentoring and people like apprenticing with you and stuff like that. So and then um like I'm trying to think, early career stuff would be like marketing, sales, um restaurant. Oh yeah, restaurant business. Forgot about that. I did run a couple of restaurants. Like this, like that's how I tried to find a first film project. And so yeah, I mean that's a good, like there's a few things there. I mean there's probably more, like, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. It just gives people an idea of what's going on there. Let's see what direction to go in. I was going to save talking about the Love Your Liver a little bit, so we'll go back to that.
Mhm.
I love that you're passionate about trying to help people, and that makes it, there are a lot of creatives out there who are producing work and, can be quite extraordinary. I always see the potential for them to turn around and start teaching and coaching and mentoring in that field, because the arts themselves have, I'll say, limited capacity,
Mhm.
right? You look at someone's work or you listen to their music and you take it in and you get what you get. And it may or may not be transformational.
Mhm.
But if you can turn around and you have that desire to bring those elements together, then that's to me much more natural, if you could call it that. I don't like that word anymore, thanks to Garrett, but Garrett Smith I'm talking about. So yeah, that's very cool. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, no, I think you're. I mean, one of the most rewarding parts of like I found that with all the teaching I would do, you might like say you're teaching a class on screenwriting or cinematography, but I always found that there's like a more important psychological or emotional lesson for the person and all of that. And I found more and more that like there's technical knowledge and there's like the knowledge of a craft or a skill set, but the most important thing is really the psychology and where that person is, mentally, emotionally, like that. I just found like you get the best results kind of focusing on that. And then whereas a lot of times people think it's like, oh, I just need to learn technically how to do a trade or a skill. And you're like, well, actually, I get, from my perspective, your life is a mess and it doesn't really matter. I could teach you all the most intricate, writing concepts, and you're not even going to be motivated to write every day. It's you realize like what people really need. And I think that's what resonated with me, is seeing where they really needed help, and it oftentimes is like outside of where they thought. They If that makes sense.
Exactly. That's brilliant. I really love that. Was there ever a time where, with all of your different, I even hesitate to call them different directions, because I personally can see how they're so well integrated. But did it ever feel like you were scattered, going in different directions, not
Mhm.
able to focus? And I'm not projecting that on you. I've had a lot of people come to me over the years. This would be more in alignment with my business coaching, where they had a lot of skills, talents, passions, interests, but felt fragmented in them and felt like they were somehow being forced by something or someone to focus,
Mhm.
as if that meant they weren't focusing. So I help them to build that into a single service, all of the things potentially about them. So yeah, it sounds like you maybe didn't suffer like that.
That was not so interestingly, like when I got into film and I tried to make my first project, which was like an independent short feature, and my plan was to make it like at a studio level. And I got all these talented people involved, but what I didn't realize is that's how most people are. What you just described is actually how most. It's a very scattered, disjointed, and so I have tons of experience with people operating that way. That I don't think that I was. That's not my natural inclination. I've been a little bit scattered enough to relate to it. I know the feeling of being scattered, but I think that sometimes I've almost been more like focused to a fault kind of person, where it's like I've committed to this. This is it. We're doing it, and then but I do notice the more you get into the creative world, anything, film, music, art, then you get people that are like just that hose spray nozzle, all over the place. Like, and you see that a lot. Like I've seen that a ton. And I would say that's the norm for the creative type person, like a right brain type person.
Right, exactly. And it can make them feel like they have nothing to offer because of that overlay of the scatteredness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ridiculous. People would come to me, they have qualifications as long as their arm on their CV or resume kind of thing, and then but they'd be literally feeling inferior, like they have nothing to offer and they don't know what they're going to be when they grow up. To me, it was just always a sign of that alchemist shadow of feeling fragmented.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good for you. That's amazing. And did I say hello to Michelle, by the way? Glad you're here. That's awesome. We had a great meeting with the mirror yesterday, by the way. Just some insider knowledge about the course we're doing. And so then what do you think is for you the common thread throughout what you've done?
Well, like ultimately it's the only reason that I went into film is because I went through a really kind of lost nihilistic phase of not knowing who I was and lost a sense of meaning. And through a ton of introspective work, I found that movies had always been the most inspiring thing to me. And I just had to be honest about that. I never grew up thinking I wanted to make films. I made an animation when I was 12 once, just because I wanted to figure out how to do it with like Mario Paint, and I made a cartoon and all that. But it had nothing to do with me wanting to be a filmmaker. And when I got real about the sense of purpose and meaning, I was like, well, I've always gotten this deeper sense there's something. Only certain films, though, it's not any film. Like it's only certain ones, and it's a very like it's it's a very authentic masterpiece type film that would inspire me. And I would notice, wow, that would hit me for 3 or 4 days. I'd have like this energy effect and a sense of meaning and purpose. And the funny thing is, like, I thought maybe I need to act in these films. But then so it was like acting. I was like, well, should I be an actor? I didn't even think director or anything. I was like, well, maybe I should act in them. Well, the thing is I didn't like movies anymore at that time period. Like the modern films at that period, I felt like films were going downhill. They seemed more superficial and overproduced and corporate-y. The authenticity was like gone to me. And I'm sure you probably can relate to that in music, right? Like what's popular now, it's not the same as like generational music from the past. It's not, I don't think it's the same. And so I felt like I was like, well, there's nothing for you to act in. I was like, well, maybe I'll make them. I was like, maybe I'm supposed to make these films. And so that was like that was how I got into that direction. It was a lot of like painful introspection and just being like brutally honest with myself. And I'm like, maybe there's something there. And uh and I actually remember it was a friend of mine's sister from LA who we were on the phone talking, and she basically said, why don't you just go to film school? And so like I was like, okay. So I like quit the current school I was in and just transferred, and I went to a local film school, and I was like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but it feels right. That was kind of how that's kind of how you know
Some of the most important decisions in life get made that way. where you don't sit and deliberate and weigh the pros and cons like we were talking in class this week and go
Mhm.
through a major process. It's just like, oh, I think there's something there. I'm going to go in that direction.
Yeah.
I do that a lot. That's how I ended up in India. Uh, I thought I would never go to India, and I literally just needed half a credit to graduate. So I'm flipping through the calendar. There's a Religions of India course. I'm like, okay, yeah, like whatever, sure. Okay, dang, it was at the right time. And it turned out to be the prerequisite to another credit course. I actually needed the second half credit for the graduation in a practical course in meditation, which
Mm.
was the only time it was ever offered in a university setting like that. It went to continuing ed after. I met a guy who lived in Himalayas. I, at that point, was getting involved with a cultural exchange program. Well, next thing you know, in a few months, there I am sitting in front of his guru, which was my guru for a time. And it was utterly life-changing, this little decision flipping through the calendar. And, and I didn't stay married to India. Now India came to me. It's
Mhm.
everywhere here.
Mhm.
But it was a very big step. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I sometimes it seems like you get I mean, there's so much there have been other profound ones like that, but it's just sometimes you get that nudge and you just go with it and you're like, I think this is coming from a higher place. And I think I'm
Exactly.
gonna go with it. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's actually really cool when it wasn't something that you wanted, right? You weren't musing about it and fantasizing about it and desiring and lusting for it. It just came up and you went that direction.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I find leadership is a similar, it turns out better when it's not something that you actually desired.
Yeah, the
So
people that wanna be in charge are the people that should never be in charge.
of exactly. That's it. It's the unlikely things
Yeah,
that make the best kings.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you got it. Hello to Elisa, nice to see you. And Juan Espinosa is in the room. Love the show. Mike is one of those rare souls who's as brilliant as he is kind. Proud to be a student and even prouder to call him a friend. How beautiful is that? Welcome here. I'm really glad to
Oh,
have
thank
you.
you, Jane.
How
That's
nice.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. It's great when other people. It's hard to promote yourself, like when you've got a lot of skills and a lot of interests and things. That's another thing I've run into very commonly, that there's a resistance to it or discomfort about that. And yet without it, there's something. This is a good reframe around the whole thing, that that it's a signaling process, not a self-promotion process.
Mm.
Right? I'm not sitting here waving, telling you how great I am and why you need to choose me to make your film or teach you to act or write a screenplay or coach about health or all of that kind of thing. You're just going, this is what I do. Here's what I notice and how people transform in the processes that I offer. And then, it speaks for itself.
Yeah. Oh, well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels icky when you promote yourself like for just that without that sense of service. It has a to me it has like a grow it's kind of like us talking about people that want to be in charge. It has that like ego validating grossness to it, and I don't like it when if I caught myself doing it, it's like, yeah, it feels, yeah, I know what you mean. Focus on the person you're trying to help.
Yeah, it's a more comfortable focus for the creative or whomever is wanting to signal out about what they do. And that was something interesting. How I've interpreted the hero's journey is really the ultimate, is not self. Um, what do you say? Real
Like
actualization.
aggrandizement. Oh, what?
Actualization,
Oh,
right?
self-actualization.
Or
Oh, yeah.
individualization, or all of that stuff. I don't use those terms very well because I really haven't studied them. I've rejected them. But to me, the hero's journey is like, if you've turned around or if you've got somewhere in your life and you've had some success and you've learned something and you've seen it of benefit, then to me, the most natural thing that you don't have to teach anyone is they want to turn around and serve others with that.
Yeah.
I got ahead, right? Like we were talking about the Love Your Liver the other day, how every time somebody joins new, people who've been in that training jump up to help them with things that for them were shocking at the beginning, or, they just couldn't wrap their head around it. And, it's like, what am I doing wrong? I'm taking all the supplements, but I feel terrible. Take your foot off the gas, little things like that. And then without the service, it just becomes a circular rather than a spiral, growing and developing process that is constantly giving back to humanity, and taking off that idea that you're here to fill yourself up. There was a story, maybe you've read this already. I wrote about it in my book, how when I had lost literally everything, my house, my possessions, my cats, my job, all my money, like just everything was gone, laying in my parents' library bedroom. My life is dissolving. I think I'm dying. By all appearances, I am about to be gone. And I popped to the other side, and I saw in the so-called nothingness what was really there, not the emptiness of nothing, but I was totally full, completely satisfied. And one of the revelations was that I never again needed to do anything in order to satisfy myself or fulfill myself. Now, it's not perfect. And I can several times every single day forget that. But it became a foundational kind of lesson for me moving forward, that we're not here to fulfill ourselves. We're already that. Same with the integration and the wholeness. We're not working for that, just to be able to experience it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's a profound, life-changing experience for sure that not everybody gets to have.
Right. Yeah. Nobody wants that.
No.
I wish that on anybody either. And so how did you come by it then? Do you feel like it was through shocks? We're going to talk about Gurdjieff's work. He's big on shocks. He likes
Yeah, he's big
that
on shocks.
stuff.
Yeah, he likes shocks. Thank you. How did I come to that same type of revelation?
To serve
Like, say that again.
to serve others.
To serve. Oh yeah. People that resonated with and studied, like I remember there was a coach. He was a best-selling author, and I worked with him a few times. Named Stephen Chandler. Um, if you ever been at an airport, it used to always be on one of the shelves in the airport bookstores, where it would be the 100 ways to motivate yourself, change your life forever. It was a New York Times bestseller for I think 24 years. And he wrote that. And he did a lot of like Fortune 50 coaching, and he would always tell me like wealth follows service. He'd like service is where your purpose is. It's just like on and on. Like, get out of your way. Stop trying to make it about you, and the person in front of you is providing all the opportunity that you need. Listen to them. Like, and it was, so that's kind of like, he was a great example of. I mean, I've heard it other ways by other people, but I really liked how poignant he was about it. And then through my own experience, I found that if I felt like I was actually helping the person, I could feel good about the transaction of our time. Because if I felt like I was deceiving them or misleading them, it felt like I was just drifting. Like, I would feel guilty and horrible. Like, I shouldn't have said that to that person. That might have demotivated them or discouraged them. And there's this fine line of like, I learned that there was a distinction between service and pleasing. And I think we're raised to please people. And I think that's everyone's impulse. Oh, my boss said to do this, or oh, my client said to do this, and you just do it and you jump through the hoop because they asked you to, or your significant other or whatever. But service is when you actually can like pull back a little bit and actually try to see what's actually right for them. Because sometimes service isn't what they want to hear, and a lot of times it's risky to you. You're like, I could say this truth, but I might lose this friendship over it. But it's actually, we're at this point now where it needs to be said for them, and it's kind of like in your work, you talk about like creative risk. It's like when you're really trying to serve, there's always an actual risk that you're going to ruffle feathers, step on toes, shock someone. And that's one of the, but I realized like that's the only way that anything meaningful happens is to take that risk.
Yeah, I totally agree. Exactly. There's so many examples that run through my mind right now. And there have been times where I'm like, oh, if I don't say this, I'm completely out of integrity. If I do say it, they're going to fire me. And then
Mhm.
that gives me a bunch of inner work to do and let it go. And then inevitably here up and out comes something. I remember telling someone he was my most scary client, I have to say, multimillionaire, owner of three major businesses. He wore fur coats. Somehow he comes on my doorstep because I had survived cancer and he had been diagnosed with cancer. So he, humbled himself to do the work. And then I saw something, and I saw it consistently, and I saw the pattern of it. And I saw he was losing his at least part of his life to it. I got brave and I said it, and the room went dead silent. It became kind of cold atmosphere. It was like, okay, well, and I felt it like maybe I'll see you again, and maybe I won't. I knew
Mhm.
that. The
Mhm.
next time that we worked together, he's like, I mean, he ultimately told me I saved his life, which I don't take any credit for whatsoever. But the breakthrough was so big, what he saw about himself and the dynamic in his family and how he'd positioned his father and a lot of pain and animosity and stuff like that. And then he had a major breakthrough, but it could have gone the other way too. So it's sometimes you have to decide, like, what's the greater love here would be to share the information, what you see, or to withhold. And you never know what that is, right? Like, you never know exactly how love is going to act, which is interesting with Gurdjieff's work in particular, because shock as a means or a tool or a technique, it's dicey. So we will get into that. I want to just say hello to a few more people that came in the room. Band Socks is here. Is that one of your friends? I don't recognize him, but welcome to the channel. And Mary said, you made decisions so easily in your younger years, but find yourself having all your ducks in a row now find yourself having to have all your ducks in a row with bigger decisions. I can relate to that. I don't know about you, Micah, but I made a lot of very quick, rash decisions when I was younger, and I paid the price. I would literally end up completely over my head or in danger, or the ends didn't meet, and there was major problems. And I got some direct advice from someone like, "Think before you act," kind of thing. So I had to, oh, that's an option too. And yeah, and I think as you age, you've seen so many consequences of that kind of thing. So you're building up a body of wisdom that's telling you to maybe get more ducks in a row. But she's asking, how does age play into this, or does it? I just answered that question a little bit. Do you want to say anything more about that, Micah?
Yeah, I can relate to that. Except it's almost like in a weird way, a flippening. I had a lot of analysis paralysis when I was younger, to where I I found it hard to make decisions. Overthinking, being. But what's interesting is, like, I believe that we compensate whenever we're too much in one area. There's going to be a way that we compensate in another. So, like, when it came to, like, career or business, or sometimes interpersonal risk with relationships or romantic, I was like analysis paralysis, always overthinking, hesitant to make decision. But ironically, I made extreme crazy physical decisions. Like, I got into some extreme sports stuff, did some stupid, like, should have died multiple times, but, like, only on the physical side. It was like, oh, if it came to me risking my own physical mortality, oh, throw caution to the wind, yeah, let's do it, let's jump, and versus, so ironically, it's like, it was like with the other stuff, I don't know what to do, I didn't know what to do all the time. So I was kind of, now it's more, um uh I feel like I have a good, better balance of that. I don't go into analysis paralysis like I used to, but I feel like I was overwhelmed a lot when I was younger. I know some people are that. Most people, though, when they're young, it's just like, oh, that looks awesome, let's do it. And I was more like, let me think it all through and overthink it and plan it, and all that. So
Right. Yeah. So you're on both extremes. It can be a rebel shadow that takes those, uncalculated risks, puts himself in danger specifically to have the excitement of that, the feeling of being alive.
Yep.
You think it was coming from there at all?
Absolutely, because it was being denied in this whole, you know, career, life direction, identity aspect. So then it shows up in the physical. And then
Oh,
it might be, you know what I mean? And then it was like sometimes I would do things, I'd be like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe, like later, you know, it's like now I have so many wounds and injuries. I'm like, I wish I hadn't done all that stuff. But you're, you know, like crazy stuff where you're like, why? Like I free climbed over a generator, a hydroelectric dam, this brick infrastructure that was built. So if you fell in, not only were you going to go in the water, you're going to get sucked into the why, you know, stuff like I could go on and on. You know, you're like, but it was so funny because on the other side, I was so conservative with my decisions to a fault. So that's interesting how that. You know, maybe when we do talk about the Gurdjieff work and stuff, he taught that every single thing in life is like a hydraulic system. If you do something on one end, it affects the other end.
mm,
There's no isolation. So you're moving that pressure somewhere else. You know what I mean? And I did that. Yeah. I, but I get where young people come from. I understand the impulsiveness. I just wasn't. That was more outside of the physical extremist stuff. I wasn't impulsive.
and I want to make a good note of that and come right back to it. Can you say it again? It's like when you act in one area of your life, it is also influencing the
Yeah.
others. How did you say it though? So good.
So well, Gurdjieff described it as a closed like like a hydraulic system where you're pressurizing the water in one piston or pump, and then it therefore is a closed system. So if you put compression or pressure mediation one way, there has to be a compensation somewhere else. In a way, it's like, you know, those like squeezy toys that people have, like stress balls where they like bubble up and stuff. It's like you're squeezing one part down, but then it's bubbling up somewhere else because it's a closed system. So you're only rearranging the object. You're not changing anything.
Right, right. You have
Yeah.
an expression of rearranging furniture on the Titanic
Yes.
is
That.
often what's the what
Yes.
people think of as healing work, sadly.
Yes.
And let's see, Diane had also added that she meant that it always worked for her without having to prepare for a year. Got it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there can be more fluidity. You can literally build up more fears. It's like toxicity in your life that it accumulates over time. And
Mhm.
so do fears and programming. So that can possibly be a reason. And I missed exactly which words, but there have been lots of wise ones already, Michelle. Michelle, she also said Beth was the first person you wanted to interview for your meeting with the mirror assignment. Yeah, it was so fun. I loved it. I feel it's very connective. Yeah. And yeah, so that's a really cool hydraulic system, like that. It's a closed system. I can't help asking quickly
Mhm.
about the what's your perception of excuse me, of the realm that we're in? Obviously Gurdjieff talked planets and more,
Mhm.
was more in that field. Do you have any take on it? I normally don't go down this road much, but
Okay. Yeah. Well, um, well, like, Gurdjieff's work would be that we are in the planetary realm where we're like a biological layer and we are beholden to 48 laws that, so those are the rules that make up our system, which is what we call nature. And in this space, like where we're incarnated, um we have this illusion of seeing things in a binary plane where we see good, evil, black, white, positive, negative. But the reality is we're missing, like what Gurdjieff would talk about, to be the ability to see reality would be to be able to become aware of third force. And third force exists at what he called at the planetary level of 24 laws, right? And so I would agree to that. I think that sometimes you hear that saying we're spiritual beings having a human experience. That's kind of a common like trope, but there's but it's accurate in the sense that like we're not primarily physical, and so I would say this realm that we've incarnated in, it's a school. We have a chance, to serve a higher power and become aware of it if we want to. But if not, we can just participate and go with the flow. And that's, I think, when we talked on our private session where we talked about like most of the stuff, like when you get into like Jesus teachings, 44 times I think it was, he talked about brought it, like basically the kingdom of heaven, very few will ever find it. Brought the masses will always go one direction. That's like serving nature. But then you have a choice to push against that and say, hey, I don't think life can explain everything. And when you get to that point where life feels like it's not the end, but a means, then you're ready to see some higher truths about our reality. But we're here in meat space, so it's seductive and alluring to just stay at the level, just like it's it's highly tempting to just go with your carnal pleasures all the time. And yeah,
Can you unpack that? Life is the means, not the end.
yeah, yeah. So when we're in this biological earth plane, we are under the illusion that this is the end. The end could be achievement, status, wealth, procreation. Okay, I had 26 grandchildren. Okay, I had money, I had wealth, I had fame, I had or kind of a new age thing. I had wonderful experiences. I had a lot of happiness, right? A lot of adventure. What you're doing then is that goes into like store up for yourself treasures in heaven, not where moth cannot, eat and rust cannot decay, right? The idea is that um, at the earth plane, it's everything is immediately available to you through your five senses. So you can validate and experience everything so obviously all the time. Then we can become hypnotized into basically thinking that that's all there is. But the irony is, when like every single person at the end of their life, they don't take any of it with them. And even this sense of legacy, I personally think it used to poison me a lot, taught psychologically, was thinking about legacy. Like at the end of the day, if you go back and look at like antediluvian archaeological discoveries, I mean, you can just go to some of these, maybe you have yourself been to these like ancient prehistoric sites, and you realize there were entire civilizations that don't exist anymore. And there's no legacy there, right? Like they don't know who built the pyramids.
Right.
It's so you have this egotistical thing like, I'm going to be the greatest blah 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 of all time. I'm the Beethoven, I'm the Picasso, or the Plato, but eventually even that runs out on a large enough time frame. No one will know who Plato was, right? And so then it really is like meaningless. It really is a vanity, but it's seductive in that our whole world operates off of it. And when everybody else is doing it, you've got reinforcement, right? Like, and but when you really think about it, if you die, and you've faced that experience, it's like you don't take any of this with you. So the question would be, what do you take with you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's a really good one. We'll get into that one next.
Okay.
And yeah, that's fascinating. I like rethinking that, and because legacy is a kind of king archetype thing, right? Where they have the bandwidth, they might have the ability to create at more scale something that might outlive them,
Mhm.
and the shadow of that can also be what, in addition to what you're saying, like the vanity, of course, right? Is just like, oh, but it's also that more satanic search for immortality,
Yes.
right? Like, oh, my body's going to die, but my work will live on, and everybody will say my
That's
name.
right. That's right.
Have you ever heard that there's two deaths? One is when your body dies, and the second death is when the last person says your name.
I've heard that in a different way, called wasn't called a second death. It was called, somebody said that to me once, and I was like, oh yeah, yeah. But it's true, because then at that point, no one remembers you, and I think that's like that's the false. So, because everybody supports it, we go along with it and we think it matters. But ultimately, there is a point where no one will remember you. at a long enough time horizon. It might be thousands of years. Like we're still talking about some of these ancient kings and mythological characters, but even at a certain point, they disappear.
And even who they were has already disappeared because
Yeah.
it's filtered down through history, right? And it's been
Right.
interpreted and reinterpreted and
Right.
maybe used as propaganda and completely lost on what the original thing was.
Yes.
So yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. I love that. Amos, nice to see you. I'm so glad you're here. You don't need a legacy, he says. I just want to make sure my son is not going to suffer too much here. Yeah, I can relate to that. Absolutely. Yeah, I was musing a little bit about because my son is an only child, so he, there's no brothers and sisters there, no cousins, no. I grew up with this massive extended family, post 2020 gonzo for him and I, and then then there's this like I've always been trying to say, oh, dude, don't put your cell phone in your pocket. So you still might be able to have babies.
Mhm.
He didn't care about that. And then suddenly he does. And so I can feel that attachment to this continuation of our lineage that otherwise literally it's hanging in the balance. It will be gone poof. But the reality is it will be gone, whether it's this generation or next generation or 25 or 30 generations down the road.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the shock that of reality that is so good to take in. Nobody likes that. They don't like hearing that. They want to think positive or whatever, kind of stuff. But I've gotten the habit of wanting the shock. Now, don't please no one take advantage of me that way or to try to test that or test me. But I like it. I like when I learn something new. Yeah, say with Garrett's work, it was so out there, so completely. I didn't want it to be right. I didn't want it to be true, but darn it, when I heard it, it was going ding, ding,
Yep.
ding, 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 and
Yep.
so yeah, and it was a painful transition. There's no lack of that. Um, People's relationship with pain, like how would you describe that on the whole?
Well, it goes back to kind of completing the last question that you had asked me about life being an ends and not a mean. Like when life kind of becomes the end, we're just trying to have happiness, more positive things that we want. Like that's what we're motivated to do biologically, right? Better food, better quality of life, more adventure, more or better mating, whatever these biological things are. And um, we have an aversion to pain, right? Naturally, just like all of your pets do. They don't want to do the thing that's going to be. This is where you start to go against the natural. This is where life becomes the means and not the end. If life becomes a means, then it's a means to work. It's a means to observe yourself, to grow, to learn, which then means, oh, I'm going to look at it and view it completely differently than everyone else. Where pain isn't necessarily bad, right? Where what you might see as a negative is actually something transformative, and you start when you were saying you look forward to the shock and the pain. I think that's a point of coming into wisdom. Um, like in the Gurdjieff's, where he would talk about that there's a sourness to the first levels of a higher consciousness, like self-remembering, the awakening type process. It's a very sour feeling. It's not positive. It's kind of unnerving and unpleasant. And many people know this term ego death. You're going to have a lot of those, right? And it's very painful, but then you can get to the point where you at least know, oh, but I understand why I'm going through this, and it gives it meaning. So it's kind of like when somebody is uncomfortable at the gym, which you always are. If you're actually working out, you're uncomfortable. But people get addicted. But gym bros and all the people, they get addicted to it because they realize, but that's making me bigger. That's making me more jacked and stronger, right? Which is true. And so then because they see the benefit, they are willing to push through the hardship. And I think it's like, that's the simple analogy. Yeah.
Righto, righto. Yeah, it's so funny because I can sit and 100% agree. Oh yeah, pain isn't bad until I'm in it. And then and
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, okay. And I find it extremely humbling because there you think that, oh, at some point that pain's going to show up, and there is a different disposition to it.
Mhm.
There was a turning point where I got excited. I had that death program come up in me, and I recognized it, and I saw it, and I was about to take what I perceived to be a big risk, and I like, "Oh, cool." I said like, "Oh, cool. This is coming up." And there was something, but it's never to minimize or to make it so unrelatable to other people to make it a sound, not us, I won't say, but like to make me sound retarded in this case, pain is pain. I do make that distinction between the meaningless, purposeless pain and the meaningful and purposeful pain of growing.
Yeah.
Very different, but
Right.
excruciating anyway. And yeah, so that's really good. That there, yeah, it all comes with its sourness, disillusionment. I wrote
Mhm.
a song called "Dear Disillusionment," literally treating it to be a kind of lover, kind of thing. And yeah, pain is a teacher, exactly. And oh, Melanie Snayer, nice to see you quickly yesterday. We also get addicted to pain. Yeah, do you have any opinion on this?
Yeah, because you identify with it. And
Bingo.
yeah, kind of like, do you remember Nine Inch Nails, the band in the 90s? Trent Reznor, right? Like he had that song, I hurt myself today to see if I could still feel. I
Mm.
focus on the pain, the only thing that's real, right? When you get so, like in your work, the peace and apathy kind of dyad, you can experience so much apathy that there's no point in life anymore. And the only thing you then have is this somatic experience of being uncomfortable or in pain. And that's where uh, a lot of people, because they're very somatic and body based, they don't know what to do. And they're like, well, if I hurt, at least I feel something. And then that gives you a level of excitement. And I think it becomes addictive, not because pain is addictive, because you're just simply addicted to covering up the meaninglessness that's always pervasive.
Exactly, like, we hide in that apathy. It, seems like a safe place. It is
Yeah.
what happens when people get traumatized and dissociated, that
Yeah.
it's a form of apathy, numbness, and this was something that maybe you heard me say it already, but my aunt would always say she turned her general GP practice into kind of a psychiatry practice because she noticed everyone coming to her had bigger problems than their recurring yeast infection or whatever it is kind of thing
Yeah.
coming through her door. And she would say that they could exist for a long time in apathy, but if they moved up, she couldn't speak this language exactly, but I recognized it later. If they moved up into the higher energy of grief, then they would end their life.
Yeah.
Or that could happen, that as long as they're in apathy, there's no they don't care enough to end their life.
That's right.
But you bring the grief in and all of a sudden it seems to be over. They didn't know the rest of the scale existed there either, which is not all grief.
I think apathy is the most sustainable emotion. It's the most low grade. It's the most it's like the least disruptive or turbulent of all emotions.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the most painful.
Yeah.
But it requires some learning to notice that.
Yeah.
And being up and out of it, being freer from it, especially the programming that holds it, starts to make apathy the worst possible pain, like intolerable pain, which
Yeah.
I've noticed. Yeah, it just becomes like where you could exist in it, it becomes like it's just a no, whatever this is. Not to say it doesn't happen.
Mhm.
And oh, one of our Love Your Liver friends, Jackie K, is here. I always love to have you here. She's so generous at asking people to hit the like button and fight against the algorithms. And heartbreak is a very painful pain. That the heartbreak of loss in relationships generally could be romantic, could be otherwise.
Mhm.
They tend to bring us to our knees. These ones.
Yeah.
Did Gurdjieff talk about romance and that kind of thing in his work?
Yeah, he did. Um so he uh man, how do I summarize that? He of course, he would say that most of what people associate as romance is just a mechanical series of impulses, right? And then they're not actually. He would say that like you can't really truly love the other person when you're just living hypnotically yourself. It just becomes people stimulating each other. It's a mechanical thing. It's like, well, you're attracted to this person and then they make you feel good in that moment. And there's like this like honeymoon, fun part. But he would say that that's not real love. He mentioned a few times like how the ancient Greeks had multiple words for different types of love. Are you familiar with that? Like,
Yeah, agape
yeah.
and eros or something like that.
Yeah. So they had, and it was more like we're too easy to say we love. And he's like, you're not even conscious in the first place. You're you're feeling positive feelings towards someone, and then you're doing nice things because of that. And so it's not really a consciousness, but real love to him would be something that you were highly conscious of, and that was coming from that place. And not really what's depicted mostly in like films or books, which is that mechanical animalist. I mean, like, it's like watching I can see a lot of squirrels out here in the trees, and they're falling in love right now, and you see them flirting and doing all that. And it's like you realize that okay, they're definitely feeling that. They're feeling the butterflies and the excitement and but you start to realize like that's not actually what real love would even be. That's a biological program. And it's not that it's bad. It kind of somebody said something earlier about they were mentioning pain, it's not, or legacy. It's not that any of it's bad. There's nothing bad about legacy. It's that legacy cannot become your highest purpose. Just like romance, there's nothing wrong with romance. There's nothing wrong. Like we have to have sexual encounter. We wouldn't have children, right? Like there's a biological need for all that. Just like there is with food and, taste and, but it's when that becomes your highest purpose, you're basically then like hypnotized by nature instead of realizing that that's the part of men about it being a means and not an end. You start seeing it as the way you would view a pencil. The pencil is a means, not an end. You're using it to do something. So we're using our incarnation in life to have a certain growth, development, and experience, not to become identified with it. That
Yeah,
makes
very
sense.
cool. Yeah,
Okay.
very cool. Exactly. And then from the language of the programming, I always identify that love hate, right? When you have good feelings and you're with a person and you think that they're the best and you love them, and then they do something you don't like, or you get to know each other well enough to be yourself and
Yeah.
let your hair down and show your crappy side too, then it can flip to the exact opposite experience of hate. So to me, that's not love at all. Yeah,
No,
true love, like Melanie said, has no opposite. You got it.
that's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, and Diane, that's exactly the book that I just made it into the 8th hour of the first book, In Search of the Miraculous. So yeah, but it's not by Gurdjieff. It's by Uspensky. Or Uspensky.
Yeah. Yes, I can. Mary Benya. So P.D. Ospensky was who he kind of sought out to be the person to codify his work because even though he spoke over 40 languages, the Western languages were not his strong suit. And he was more of an Eastern man and he wanted to find a Westerner. So Ospensky was English, Russian, and then later settled there. But he had that Western mindset and very good communicator. So he wrote In Search of the Miraculous. And then there's a book that he wrote. There's a lot that he wrote, but the other one called The Fourth Way. If you want to learn his teachings directly, like definitively, his book, The Fourth Way, is really good. But I recommend, I think on Beth's podcast, you start with In Search of the Miraculous because it's kind of a narrative, like a story of how Ospensky met Gurdjieff. And I think, Beth, you're pretty far into that now, right?
8 hours into the first book. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an audio on YouTube. Yeah.
The two-part audio on YouTube. Yeah. And you can listen to it free. I mean, it's public domain now. It's more than, it's old enough to be public domain. I would just recommend anybody that's interested in this stuff to start there. I think it's the easiest starting point. And you still learn a lot of his philosophy and teachings and stuff at the same time.
Exactly. So I'm actually sharing a link to that audiobook here that Micah shared with me originally. Sorry, there's no tag there to identify it, but if you want to click on it, we can listen to that together. It does make your brain bleed, so a little bit of a it's intense, like such a download. And one of the things that comes up if we're into this. Hello, JJ. Creep, by the way, and we need more Micah men in the world. I know.
Wow.
Yeah. Just before I miss this, Melanie said, where romantic connections have the push-pull of, hey, exactly, you got it. Yeah, we speak the same language there. And you're welcome for the link. So what did I just promise? Oh, you know what? One more thing I wanted to say is I like your point about that. It's not that you shouldn't love that you left a legacy. And maybe there's a book that one generation or two generations leave, or, maybe 20, who knows? But if it's I just want to emphasize the point that you made. If that is your primary purpose, then you're destined to be disappointed and disillusioned by it, and see that it's actually empty as a primary purpose. You will be left empty by that.
Yeah.
And so, I point towards the hedonist archetype that I've been a little bit of a champion for. And so we can inherit the earth. We can have enjoyable relationships, and we can enjoy food, and we can enjoy the elements. And I had a sunbeam hit my face unexpectedly yesterday. And I'm like, ooh, like this. It's just so nice. And so there's nothing wrong with that, but it's when it gets out of what's the word? Like not, you lose sight of the actual purpose of growing. So yeah, just want to emphasize that very important point. And yeah, I think everything's there. So where the heck, do you remember where I was going to go from there?
Let's see. You were asking, we were answering her question about why Gurdjieff didn't write that book. I don't know where you were going. I will say that Gurdjieff did write 3 books himself. I would not recommend, the only one that I would recommend you look at early on, if any of them, is it's called Meetings with Remarkable Men, which is actually his story of how he wound up going through the journey of discovering ancient knowledge, and then meeting the Sarman Brotherhood and some other characters. That one, the other, like his other, he has a actually, it's funny, he's right here. This is the Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson. So this is 1,300 pages. So this was designed to be so difficult to read that it would break your mind. He purposely designed it to be what he called an objective work of art, where it's not about your subjective experience. It's like you will have the exact experience if you read it. And it is not something I would recommend to anyone that isn't already like really, really invested, because you're just going to be like, what is this? And set your hair on fire. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's brilliant in a whole other level that you're not, it has a level of like transcendence to it that is, you can't really put into words, but at the same time, it's brutal. Like it's very hard to read, and it was designed to be that way. Like,
and so what effect does it have on you?
There was a shock. I remember there was a guy that really pushed me to read it, that I was like working with, who had worked with he had belonged to a couple of the Gurdjieff groups in London, and he was like, you've got to read the tales, you got to read it, because I knew about it, but it was like, man, that's a lot of book, and then knowing that it was like supposed to be unbelievably hard to read by design. And then I wouldn't want to spoil it, but there's a point where there was a conscious shock to me that was very transformative, and it has to do, what's funny is when I shared it with the guy that was mentoring me about it, he was like, that was designed to be the first shock in the book. It's like, I just felt like my mind was being blown outside of like our normal time, space, and but it had to do with like ancient, I wouldn't want to spoil it, but there was like basically at one point in time in
spoil it.
I don't want to spoil it, but it was like
no,
just so
do
profound.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so meaningful and profound. It was like there were a few things in there when you realize what it's making you wrestle with, and you're like, wow, it's definitely, I don't think you could read that book and come away with the fact, like with any interpretation that he did not have access to like a higher plane. Because but it is not, I'm telling you, it is like one of the most hard books you would ever read in your entire life. It would be easier to read the Bible 5 times in a row than to, like in King James or something. Like, to give you an idea of how hard, but he wanted it to be that way. I know when he first published that book, or when he first wrote it, he gave it to all of his students, and then they figured it out too fast, and he was upset. He's like, "Oh, you shouldn't have been able to figure it out this fast." So he rewrote it and made it way harder. But that's that again, that struggle, like you talking about shock. He needed things. He wanted things to be earned.
Mm.
He felt like because he said if you didn't pay, there was never any value. You had to pay. If anything was ever going to matter, you had to pay in some way for it, with your effort, with your energy, with your, not necessarily financially, but it could be financially. But the idea is like, if there's nothing invested on your end, and I mean, doesn't that make sense anyway? Like as an entrepreneur, that over and over again, when people don't have skin in the game, they really don't value it. And yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that fellow that I was telling you turned around and became my mentor for some time. And he would charge people $60,000 for the package that he offered me for nothing. He opened the conversation by saying, I know you probably won't make good on it. Right.
Wow.
He just said, because he knew after time, if you give people things for nothing, even though you have it to give, or you don't necessarily need the money or anything like that, that they won't do it without the skin in the game.
Yeah.
They won't take the risks. They won't invest themselves in actually doing that work. So yeah, it's so interesting because it is a pretty typical guru kind of a position to not so much the to make it earned or like to force that, but to break your mind.
Mhm.
That then there starts to be a little bit of, and I'm not even saying there's any relation here, but if you think about the movie is going clear, and what's L. Ron Hubbard, I believe, is the
Mhm.
guy's name,
Yeah.
with
Oh yeah.
Scientology and everything.
Yeah.
So that seemed to be his shtick, breaking people's mind. But that went dark as far as I'm concerned. Like, what would be the difference between a Gurdjieff and a L. Ron Hubbard, if there's any comparison at all?
Well, no, it's a great comparison because there were actually a lot of people that thought of Gurdjieff as a psychopath or even evil. Um, what it is that when you become aware of power, so like take L. Ron Hubbard, he really understood human psychology, like really well.
Right.
And so what did he do? What did he do? He took that knowledge and he used it to create a very, very powerful institution and like mind control people, basically. The same knowledge could be used for good,
Right.
right? It is a double-edged sword. So like Gurdjieff, sometimes different historians will call him the rascal saint, right? Because he would change on people and shock them and confuse. Even P.D. Ouspensky, who wrote, if you when you get later in the book, in Search for Miraculous, you'll see that they eventually had a falling out. And Ouspensky talks about where he felt like he had to separate the man from his teaching. But one of the things with all the work that I've like done and looked into and the people I've talked to and stuff, I think that Gurdjieff knew that people have a tendency to need gurus. And I think once he planted the seed in someone and he knew it was there, he would do everything to make sure that they would separate from him and not worship him or not put him on a pedestal. But which would then cause them to do things like, like that would make them angry or make them feel like, oh, I have to leave him. But it was like, I think from his perspective, this is my best observation, is that he wanted what was best for them. It's kind of like us talking about service. So he was willing to be someone they didn't like anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So they wouldn't put him on a pedestal. So they would look for the truth within them.
That's amazing. That's like such a high calling, because otherwise then you get into the needing of followers and the needing of them to validate your power.
Yeah.
in there. And so it like you're saying, it's the same thing. It's just being used for a different reason, a different purpose.
Yeah, and like L. Ron Hubbard, I mean, you can see what he did with his power, right? Like now you have people worshiping you, and you have all the answers, and you have untold wealth being generated and aggrandizement, and that's very seductive. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
Much
yeah,
more popular.
yeah.
Let's say. Was Gurdjieff popular by any standards?
He wasn't popular, but during his lifetime, okay, he was being watched by every single intelligence agency because he was working with royal families. He had befriended a prince. He married a princess. She died in her 20s. Yeah, like he was highly connected because of what he had access to, and that became known very quickly. But in fact, one of his students later, Bennett, he was a spying on Gurdjieff, working for the British government, and he wound up like becoming a student of his. And but so he was never popular. He talked about how his work could never be popular, but he was known. I think at his most popular would have been while he was alive, because there were very powerful people who were heavily affected by him, who had their lives changed, and they were like, okay, I'm going to give this guy money or support. And so he had a bit of a following then. I think in this day and age, very few. It's very rare people even know. You know, he's not somebody that most people wouldn't even know who he was. He's not a household name.
Yeah, exactly. His name, maybe filtered in and around, but I like literally never was drawn to his work until meeting you. So that's pretty cool. And so Diane is up for the challenge. And what was the name of that book again? I can put it in the
Are you
chat.
serious? Well, if you want to. So this one, okay. So when he first wrote it, it was called All and Everything, but the published name is Beelzebub, like the demon.
Oh yeah.
Beelzebub's tells to his grandson, and it's thick. If you want to do it, that's the paperback. I'll be impressed if you get through it.
Did I get that right?
Yeah. No, Belze. So instead of an A, it's an E.
Okay.
Belze. Yeah.
Okay, close enough. All right.
Yeah. Close enough. They'll find it. They'll be able to find it. And that
Yeah.
he wrote himself. Yeah. It took him 10 years to write it.
Wow. No doubt.
Yeah.
Crazy. And if we ever forget what we're talking about, we can circle back to how great Micah is. Lisa says
Wow.
that's so sweet. And hello, Sane Lady. Better late than never. Nice to catch you live. Apparently, I talked to her the other day. She was binge watching Beth of Fresh Air to catch up. That's so sweet. She lives close to me. Melanie said, kind of like what's happening with the gurus right now. Yeah. Do you think, like, are we heading out of the guru age, or is there such thing? A lot of people have said that.
I don't know if there's such a here's the problem is like we were talking about the hydraulic system earlier. Human nature doesn't seem to change. It really comes down to most people. One of the things I've learned is that most people have a deep desire to be led and told what to do. In fact, I mean that's even in Hitler's Mein Kampf. He talked about that. Like once you realize that people want to be told what to do, you don't think that intuitively. You're like, surely that's not the case. But people really, it gives them a sense of meaning and structure. It gives them, it's kind of like when somebody joins the military. Now you don't have to make decisions for yourself anymore. They're made for you. And there is a relief in that for a lot of people, like, oh, well, even though it sucks and I'm miserable, at least I don't have to make decisions anymore.
Exactly. That's why the pandemic worked for the time that it did.
Yeah.
When they wagged their fingers and told them to go home, it's like, oh, whew, now I can just lay around and do nothing and wait for more instructions. Oh, poison injection. Okay, good. We'll go over that. And no, and even you and I have something in common with the marketing world. If you guys don't know, I was born and raised in a business of my family's in that, and people actually, if you fail to tell them what to do, can be as simple as like go here and click this, and that's what's going to happen. Then they might not do the simple thing that seems obvious enough to you, but give them a simple step to go forward into that, and all of a sudden it's so much more productive than it was before. So there's something about that. And we all, I think it doesn't matter how adept you get, at some point you're probably still going to want someone in your life that can tell you the truth or tell you what to do, or even if you're the one that's always telling everybody what to do, kind of thing. So do you think that's part of the nature side? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at a beehive, they have a queen, they have a hierarchy and a structure. It's automatically encoded into their DNA, right? Like as they go through the motions, those drones want to be a drone, right? The
They're
workers
not
want to be. What's that?
they're not rebelling.
No, and because you're really truly going with the flow. I mean, the sheep wants to be a sheep, and not to denigrate people. It's just the reality is they want the shepherd to lead them. And in a weird way, talking about like when you bring up L. Ron Hubbard, if you really get into like kind of a darker, more shocking truth about our reality, is the people that are in charge, they know all this stuff and they see it as their duty because they're like, people want it anyway. And in a weird way, they're right. That's the weird part, is you are acquiescing all the time.
Right. Yeah, very dark side to that. Sue just brought it. Welcome,
Yeah.
Sue, to the Stanley Milgram experiment. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And Elisa said you just stored his Conversations with Men book about 2 months ago after having it in the stack for years. Interesting. Oh, there you go. We're in good company around here. And hello, Chris. Nice to see you. The book of Samuel speaks to this, he says. Are you versed in the Bible as well?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Bible Belt in West Virginia in a like a non-denominational Protestant church, and I'm very I yeah like I would actually say that part of the part of me um beginning to see things differently than a lot of people was actually studying the Bible. Yeah.
And what did you get out of that?
Well, when I was in junior high school, like I remember, most of the Protestant Bibles had like red letters. Do you know those ones where the words of Christ are written in red and everything
Yes.
else is in black ink? And I noticed this pattern of like, if I just looked at, so like I also grew up loving Star Wars, right? And there was always a scene in Empire Strikes Back that really pissed me off, which was when Luke decided to disobey Yoda and go try to save, Han and Leia. And Yoda tells him, "You're not ready. You're not going to be able to face Vader." And then he decides to go ahead and do it anyway, right? And I was like, why would you not listen to Yoda? I mean, the guy levitated the ship. He's got like, listen to the little green thing, right? But I started to have that same thing where I was like, if this is all really about Jesus, why are we not looking at his teachings a little bit more than all of the other narratives that I was? Because like a lot of the people in the church system I was were very judgmental, bitter, and I would read his teachings or then some of the other stuff like where you look at like the Beatitudes, and I'm like, this is not congruent with my experience of people in church. Like they're not like this Jesus guy and what he taught at all. And that was the thing that I noticed. Like, and I remember I took a spiral notebook. I think I was 14, and I just started writing all the red letter stuff, and then looking at it, and then realizing like if I just looked at that, it was like I was looking at a whole other universe that had nothing to do with what I was raised in.
Right. Wow, that's so wise for a 14-year-old.
Well, I mean, it was out of this existential pain. I just felt so empty and lonely and lost and confused about all of it. And there was so much judgment, and I'd had quite a bit of traumas and stuff. And I just was like, and that goes into like when we talk about in the Gurdjieff work, magnetic center. You
Yeah.
have a magnetization for something higher that that life cannot give you the answer. There's something more, and you feel a draw. And I felt the pull. Whenever I would read Jesus' teachings, I felt a pull that I did not feel in a lot of the other stuff. I'm not saying none of it was, I'm just saying there was a clear, distinct difference. And then it's like, well, why did this guy speak in parables all the time? He never was telling people what to do. You know what I mean? He was asking questions. And it was like something that, and I found that I couldn't talk to anyone about that without triggering them. Like you would just trigger anyone into extreme rage. Like it was dangerous to bring that. So that was just something I never talked about. I just kept it to myself. But it was kind of like between you and God kind of a thing, where I'm like, well, there's something to this. This makes more sense to me than what my culture is impressing upon me, you know? And yeah, so that was kind of the beginning of that, like came from that.
Nice, that's amazing. Yeah, because otherwise you can just be like go along to get along and let yourself be gaslit and not notice the contradictions between what what Jesus was saying and how people act. And yeah, I mean that's the marker. If you can come at it simplistically at all, it's like does your faith make you more or less like Jesus?
Yeah,
And
what about you? I don't know if I know that about your upbringing.
I also have a semi-Christian upbringing in, but I say semi because my mom actually stopped my dad from sending money to the church when they were raising their family. She felt like that was just absolutely wrong while they were, trying to struggle and
Mhm,
raise two kids at the time. Was another to come, and so then they were kicked out of the church
mhm.
when they wouldn't pay. Then that relationship dissolved. So I only got the bitterness of my. I was never told this happened either. All I knew that they were bitter and we didn't go to church, but the rest of the extended family did.
Yeah.
So I knew there was something there, and then I did come around as a teenager back to Christianity. I became an evangelical Christian
Mhm.
and started like Bible thumping and leaving tracts for people and telling them they're going to go to hell, so they should believe in Jesus and all that kind of thing. Then I did a flippening, just to use your word from before, and actually went on the satanic side. My rebel went full on, and I got involved with some wrong people. I was being groomed for a satanic church, is my guess now, looking back and seeing how these events went. So yeah, it was a total flip. Then I got shocked by how much trouble I got myself into, over the top. Ended up in jail and in a different city a few times, and really at very big risk. It's like all your uh, scary physical stuff that you did. I did it more in this arena.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, amazing. I didn't die doing all that. And then it wasn't until 2020 I came back to the Bible through the law, because that's what everybody was chirping about, the laws in the Bible, and it's like sort of not true actually. Just so you guys know, you can find out in the House of Free Will more about that. We're on that subject too. But and then I had a recent experience, which maybe I told you. I think I told other people here about a local friend who I actually do love and have a lot of admiration for. I'm grateful for him, but his worldview is that about me in particular is that Satan is chasing me and is going to get me, and he needs to try to save me, basically,
Mhm.
because the devil's coming after me. I'm not dead yet. I'm still worthy of saving. Like this. And I haven't been able to entirely articulate it, but it's so disconnecting. There's something about it. I couldn't have them on for the interview because I didn't know how to navigate his perception of me in the world.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
is it there's so many beliefs. You have to adhere to this. Jesus died for your sins, and there's so many things that they don't have any. There's nothing to check them against, which is one of the things I appreciate about G. He would say, if I'm not mistaken, like it's all subjective. All you have is your own perception, right? That's all we can actually know.
Right.
And then you come along with this fantastical story, and like I don't know what to do with that. So how did you navigate in that?
Wow. Well, that's a fascinating story. I didn't know about your going down that path. That's fun. I mean, that's funny. But that is a pendulum swing. It happens all the time. We go from one extreme to the other. For me, how did I? And yeah, you Gurdjieff would talk about verification. He would say it's kind of like with Bitcoin, right? Don't trust, verify. He would say you don't need to believe any of this. Test it for yourself. If it's real, use it. Like he didn't want to create a belief system. Um, how did I navigate that? That's a man, such a that'd be a long conversation. But to make that one short, it's like I felt the I went through like a lot of ridicule. Like, for example, I was deemed a heretic from my church. There was a split over it because I had talked to a rabbi. And it was like, to me, I was like, well, I was trying to understand what this Hebrew word meant, and like that was not okay, and then they basically said I was demonic, and a certain person passed, I don't want to get into specifics, but like passed a little wax sealed thing deeming me a heretic and all this stuff. And
No kidding.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was just for that. I was like, well, my gosh. I mean, what? Like, how? So again, it comes into that perspective. Like you were saying, you didn't know that person's like frame of reference for you. You can't understand it. It's it's a bunch of like pigeonholed automatic thinking that people have, and what it is like they need to they need to have everything figured out. It needs to be a level of certainty, like even like in the event that led to that when I in the church that I grew up in, the day that that happened, there was a so like my family on both sides were like deacons in this church. They were like important structural members, like and my grandfather was he was saying like that he didn't agree with this notion that when people so from a Protestant context, there's a lot of different, I'm sure you're familiar with all the different denominations and stuff, right? There's
Not in
about
much detail, but I know all the names. Yeah.
well, so believe this though, that all of them have these edicts that are like black and white. There's like 30,000 of these denominations. And it's like the most splitting hair craziness that you've ever heard. So the one incident was he was he let them know we had a this meeting, and it was they were trying to find a new pastor because the pastor had died. And I was voted to be on this council in this meeting and whatever. And he brought up the fact that when you died, he found no scriptural evidence for the fact that you went to heaven, but you waited for the resurrection. And the other half of the room found that blasphemous and abhorrent, so much so that that single conversation led to an entire splitting of the church.
Right.
You see how, like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's that level of like control and certainty that people have. And you can't, like to me that's like the unsustainable. But then you're looking for a constant feedback loop, like echo chamber. And that's what all this stuff is like, oh, no, we're all going to agree to what this is because we can't accept that we don't know. There's a there's an existential pain, and it's that sourness that we were talking about when you start realizing I don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. But most people, that pain, just that alone is too much pain for them. I need to know black and white. This is the answer. This is what happens. This is what happens when you die. This is the point of life. This is what you do with Mondays. This is what you do on Thursdays. It really, really is like that level of comfort that most people need, so they can just kind of go through the motions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so wise to see all of that. There was a point where I was doing a deep dive on the masculine feminine archetype, and it was the conclusion that I came to in the end was that these two qualities of certainty and uncertainty kind of are reflective of our masculine feminine. Right?
Yes.
The masculine is better with certainty. The feminine is better with uncertainty. They both coexist, but this is the part, the certainty. It like it locks them into a room and they can't get out. Like
Right.
there's no other discussion that they could have. It is a dead end. There's no learning that could happen,
Mhm.
right? If you're certain. And oh my goodness, what that must have been like to be called a heretic and have deacons in the family, and based on this hair splitting kind of certainty around truth. That sounds so intense.
Well, it was when you grew up with the people, and it was like kind of heartbreaking and confusing. And then I was related to like half of them. It was a big, I had that kind of same family experience. You said lots of family, extended family, but it's like you just don't know. It's unnerving because you're like, well, I'm just trying to pursue the truth. Because what always felt like to me was that the truth was more valuable, and I don't. That's the case. I think most people, their beliefs are more valuable.
Exactly. This has been the bandwagon I've been on for the last little while, that I can make a game out of letting my beliefs go, because I know that if things are true, I can't let them go. They will withstand
Right.
that process. But if they're just gone poof, then it's just gone. I can't refer back to it. My big error in the Christian community that most recently is that I was asking about oneness, because every time I flip a page in the New Testament, Jesus is talking, saying, "I and my Father are one," or so, they, like, literally over and
Mhm.
over and over again. You find so much evidence of that.
Yep.
But my friends at the time were so gravely offended
Mhm.
by me even asking a question, making no claim whatsoever,
Yep.
just a question. What would Jesus have said about oneness? "Oh, Beth, you're like the devil, and I need to get away from you. You're a bad influence on me," and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So it's there's nowhere to grow from there at all, in relationship or in your own being.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's counter. It's it's the counter growth. It's like talking about serving nature. You're just going with the flow, and you're doing what satisfies. Because being accepted culturally is a creature comfort. Like, it's a very tribal, primal thing to be accepted, to do what everybody else is doing. It's very easy to do, and it's very comforting to know, like, look, everyone's doing what I'm doing. They support me, and it gives you a. The funny thing is, it's a false oneness.
Exactly. You got it.
It's the shadow of oneness, right?
Tribalism. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. Fake and gay oneness.
That'd be a good T-shirt or bumper sticker. Yeah.
There you go. That's fun. Hello, Jennifer Metcalf. Nice to see you. Yeah, integration. That is definitely what our subject. Thanks for reminding me. We can get lost in the weeds. Jackie said that it was religious knowledge class that you raised a question. It was made to stand outside the class. It's just so much abuse has come to the children, unfortunately, in their very innocent. It's always so innocent. You're not trying to take down the establishment. You're following thought or inspiration or a question, right? Wanting to
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Yeah, it sounds like a cult. Exactly. That's what cults do. They need to control you. And Sue, this is I'm not sure if we're going to get deep in here, but about Yahweh being actually the adversary when it comes to the Old Testament, God being the jealous, vengeful, murderous God, and the God of the New Testament being much more loving and kind. Do you have any thought on that?
I mean, I could. That's going to be triggering for people, and that would be something we could probably spend a month on. But I will
Yeah,
just say, Jesus, he did tell the Pharisees that you are of your father, who is the devil. He did say that his father was not that his father was not the God of this world. I
there you
mean,
go.
that and yeah, to hint at the answer. Yeah.
Right. Well done. That's great. And oh yeah, I haven't talked to Clint for a long time. Chris said I think he would enjoy the Red Pill Sunday School breakdown of the Bible. Possibly. Do you know Clint Richardson?
No. Mm,
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
think.
He's similarly dogmatic in his beliefs, I have to say. I mean, I like that guy, and I hosted him in one of my courses
Okay.
for that, but another subject. And uh, I don't know how to say your name. Livu? Ruzu? Religion should be like a map to grow. Christ is within us, not a hero to save the world, while everyone is a zombie. There you go. Yeah, and Gurdjieff would agree with that, right? When he didn't say zombie, but he would say asleep.
He would say asleep. He also said one time, he multiple times actually, people they asked him the origin of his teaching, and he would say, "This is esoteric Christianity."
He
He
would.
was like,
Okay.
Yeah, he would." But the point he would say, the regular person cannot be a Christian. He was like, if you haven't awakened your consciousness, you can't even apply Jesus teachings in the first place. So and he was really big on telling people that, like, you don't understand, like, it's not about you going and doing rituals and being a part of a group or a membership, or he was like, it's about becoming something that the average person isn't able to do or willing to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because I always come back to this, that motive is everything. So,
Mhm.
Jesus recommends being kind and loving one another. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, what could be better advice than that? But then you go and you do it in order so they love you. So you are safe. So you stay in the tribe. So that, it becomes a virtue signal. The very same action of kindness
Yeah.
yeah, not got a clean motive.
No, I remember. And this is funny. I haven't thought about this in a long time. It just hit me. But after 9/11, you remember when we went to Afghanistan and Iraq, the United States did, right?
Mhm.
Um,
I
my
identify as an American.
okay, my friend. Yeah, well, that might happen soon enough. But
We
the
welcome it.
Saskatchewan and Alberta, yeah. But uh, what I was gonna say is, I remember a friend of mine and I, he was working on a film project with me. We made these remember the bracelets that say, "What would Jesus do?" Do you remember those in the 90s? They
No.
were these rubber, like the Live Strong for Armstrong bracelets, people, though they were like that, but they would say WWJD.
Okay.
So we made one that said, "Who would Jesus bomb?"
Ah,
People did
wow.
not like that. They did not like that. You want to talk about putting people on edge very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I know. How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like this from Chrissy says that Christian is a verb or adjective, but should never be a noun. Yeah, that's
Oh, yeah. That's
pretty well
cool.
said, eh? Yeah.
I haven't heard that before. That's neat. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and Christ whipped evil people. Christians don't do this, so there's that. Yes, exactly. And thank you, Jackie K. Got my back over here. That's very nice. And yeah, so we are doing some in-depth conversations, and it's entirely up to you, Micah, if you want to keep going on those. I'll probably go as long as you want to go in the House of Free Will, where I
Okay.
do my private snippets, and
Mhm.
that it's a private podcast. So we'll definitely get deeper into that. And we could talk about Jung a little bit just by contrast, and then
Okay.
go into the love your liver stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So, to what degree have you got into Jung's work?
I mean, I'm familiar with it. I've read parts of the Red Book and a lot of his essays and read about him and quotes, and I mean enough to know have the flavor. I wouldn't say I was never like a, a major student of his work, but I appreciated it, and I can see the validity of like his, especially his archetypes and the subconscious and all that. I think he brought a lot of great things to the table. I also appreciated that he was more like, in contrast to Freud, who, Freud was all about, let's diagnose the illness, and Jung was more like, well, let's look at the wellness. And that, to me, that was an important distinction, like, because Freud set up the modern psychological paradigm and mental health and illness. You have the DSM and all these things that are derivative of him, versus Jung is like, well, it seems like there's an infinite amount of disease, but the people that are healthy have certain things in common. That was something that I appreciated from, like, gleaning his work.
Nice. I never picked that up, but neither did I make a major study of it. I did. My favorite book of his was I believe it's called, yeah, there it is, Memories, Dreams, and Reflections.
Mhm. I've
And
read part. I've read part of that. Yeah, yeah.
right, I like that one because it was about, or it was him actually talking rather than giving an academic discourse.
Yeah.
So anytime I got into his academic work, I felt like it was empty for me anyway. I would buy the book, I'd read it, I read a few pages, I'm like, I and can you think of, like, in the academic realm, a place where you would want to virtue signal more, right? You have to, I'm projecting that on him, but you have to satisfy certain requirements of ways of being and writing and relating and teaching, right? The moment you got subjective into your own experience, like dreams, memories, and reflections, then that came out at the end,
Mhm.
right? At the very end. He couldn't have led with that work, I think, and sustained credibility.
No, yeah, I agree. What, wait, was there? Was there an exact question, or you just wanted me to comment
No,
on it?
no,
Okay.
I'm just riffing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's beautiful to hear that you see that there was the focus more on well-being and what that was.
I think so. I think that's what he was getting at with archetypes. Like there was an eminence, and that you could swim towards that, or embody it to a degree. Versus like it, because at the same time you had Freud and that whole paradigm, which is meant like all we're doing. It's kind of like mainstream medicine, tying that back into where we're at today with the pharmacology and stuff. It's like you're just treating symptom. You're saying, oh look, this person has this mental disorder, but Jung wasn't seeing the world that way. Everything was like, it's kind of like you talking about your work with the shadow. Oh, this is the shadow side of this archetype. And then that has certain negative consequences to it when you're in the shadow. And I think I just thought that he was in the right direction of where we should have taken mental health and psychology from a mainstream, because he was pretty popular. Um,
Right.
but you can see the industry really leaned into Freud. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and they were contemporaries from what I could
Hmm.
see. In fact, Jung was a student of Freud
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a time, and then he diverged. And
Yeah.
yeah. So that's really interesting. There's so much. When I compared my work to both G and Jung, I seem to be a hybrid
Hmm.
between
Yeah.
between them in the ways that I've interpreted, taken certain things, and so that's also what we're talking about in the House of Free Will. So you guys can come over and hear that. And since our time is a little bit more limited now, I would like to go into this other area, like you said at the beginning, that if your health is not good, then what else can you do? Nothing. And so do you want to describe your journey of awakening into health? You shared some of it already, but like what that really meant and how you came around to Garrett's work?
Sure. Well, like in the most abbreviated thing, being younger, around the same age that I was having those questions about like the Bible and stuff, I started noticing all these sick people around me, uh, that just looked terrible, and people were looking worse all the time. And I was like, man, they're overweight, their hair's falling out, they're having multiple surgeries, they've got these boils and cysts and lumps and tumors, and I just was like, something is wrong. Something is really, really wrong. And then I noticed, like, looking at video and pictures of people from like the 40s, 50s, 60s, even up to like the 80s, they didn't look the same. Something was changing. And so that led me down many paths of just trying to figure this out. Like, what's happening? Something's happening to our health, learning a little bit, like getting into, I did a little bit of bodybuilding and powerlifting a long time ago. And you start to see differences based on your performance or your body mass, and you start realizing like, wow, so what I eat really matters. You start to see that consequence of like, oh, if I eat this meal, I'm stronger the next day. If I do this one, I'm leaner. And just the many years of trying to figure it all, and I went down all the same paths that I think Dr. Smith did. Like, I think in the same order when he described like going through I think it was exactly the same order. You're getting closer, to the truth, you're getting more truths, and then sometimes you're getting these like little booby traps mixed in with it, like organ meat, for example. It's like you're getting, but at the end, you're trying to figure something out that most people aren't willing to do. It's very uncomfortable. Um, and then you sound like a weirdo and a wacko, and then nobody wants to talk to you at Thanksgiving dinner because you make them feel bad. But I've been that person for so long, I just accepted it. I mean, like, it used to be like my grandmother, whenever I'd go to eat, she just, and this is back, I don't eat this anymore, but for a long time, being like kind of more paleo minded, she would just make me a salmon fillet and a sweet potato, because she knew, I know he won't complain about this, and like for a long time, that was, I wouldn't recommend that now, and you know why and all that. But it was just like, it was like Mike is having a salmon, and we made all this other stuff and casseroles and pasta and all, but I would have and I was grateful. I was grateful that she did that. But you just get okay with being weird, people looking at you and judging you, and you're like, I don't care anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because with the truth community, I thought, oh, I finally found my tribe, a place that I could fit in and not fitting in. And then when Garrett's work came along and I did this massive switch, I suddenly became an outlier among outliers,
Yep.
right? And they don't like it. And I've lost a lot of friends over this path. I've also, made new friends like
Yeah.
yourself and Bethany. And big
Sure.
shout out to Bethany, by the way, if you
Oh
want to
yeah.
let her know how much I appreciate her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so then the this is a really good topic that now say knowing about Garrett, one of the first instincts is to maybe go truther on it, and then you want to go call out anybody who promotes vitamin A or promotes vitamin C or anything like that, but it's like shooting fish in a barrel and they don't have a clue
No.
and you're just going to sound retarded. So yeah, the proselytizing on this, which is not a religion, but it's a thing and it's a system. How do you navigate that when you're in people's worlds, and do you say anything about it?
And that's a great question. I have learned, because I am the most guilty. I think when we did our archetype thing, I think I'm like a nurturer, and you're is just this in the shadow of just overgiving and trying to help. I've probably lost 20 to 30,000 hours of my life just trying to help people with their health, in the last 25, 30 years. Like, and you're like, oh, they're so close, they're going to get, and I realize now, um, you cannot, this saying, you can lead the horse to water, you can't make him drink. I don't really help people anymore unless I see they're the most dehydrated, thirsty horse I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't try anymore because it's such a waste of your time, and then it causes frustration. Um, but how I've navigated it is when they ask, I might, because it's very complicated and it's shock. Talk about a shock. His paradigm, the toxic bile paradigm time, is a shock. It was a shock to me when I first heard it. The first thing I ever even heard about, there was a guy that I think belongs to his group. I don't know how, his name was Thor Torrens. Do you know who that is?
Yep.
It was on Instagram. I'm sorry, X. It was on X, Twitter
Yep.
X.
That's how I
And
know.
it was a carnivore person that I followed who was really pissed about his post. And they were like, this guy is a CIA asset, he's a Fed. Listen to this crap. So I listened to it and I'm listening to him and I'm like, he's basically talking about how eggs are terrible for you, right? Which was a little bit triggering and stuff. And I was like, well, he doesn't really come off as a Fed. So I just started listening. I decided to follow him and he's posting stuff. And I was like, huh. I was like, that's triggering to me. I don't know that he's right. And then all the carnivore people were just inflamed. I mean, they were so mad. They basically, it was like, and I was like, huh, I was like, this is interesting. So for a few months, I kind of followed him and then I started following Garrett. And then of course, Garrett's like at a whole other level of understanding. I mean, he's one of the, I guess, the founding fathers of whatever, and like Grant Generou and all, so I realized, like, because I'm somebody that wants the truth. So like kind of like when you said things just start clicking, like I think is what you said. It was like there's some personal stuff that like maybe we'll talk about another time, but I just was like, there were some things I couldn't explain. And then it was like, man, this is making a lot of sense. And then I didn't want it to be true. But I wrestled with it it was like 6 months of me wrestling with it before I even told Bethany about it, before I even mentioned it to her.
Mm.
Because I was like, I'm not going to bother her with this until I'm really sure. And then I was like starting to feel pretty convicted. And then quickly she found that same level of conviction about like, yeah, dang, this is probably right. And then we started doing like taking the recommendations. Then we signed up, and we're like pretty far into that process now of detoxing and becoming aware. And but I realized like most people can't handle it, and I just test people. Like I'll throw them a little bone, like, and I tell you for this whole time I've talked to my mom about it because she has some health concerns, and she's finally, just through me and Bethany doing it and all the exposure of that, she's starting to make some choices. Like she gave up eggs a few weeks ago, and
Mm.
some of her things that she's dealing with are getting better.
Hmm.
And she's given up other stuff, and you realize there's like that osmosis. Like, you're just the people that you're around, they're going to see something in you, or at least your commitment level. They'll at least respect, wow, you're really committed, you're doing this. And then maybe so I've had a few people try stuff, but I found that his paradigm is so shocking and jarring that most people, you can't. Like, you can watch the glaze just go over someone's eyes when you start talking about toxic bile, and I'm sure you've had that experience. You can see
I had it yesterday.
yeah.
I had it yesterday. Yeah, no, I'm at the grocery store, and what was I buying? And oh yeah, I wanted white popcorn because I
Mhm.
got cut off the Brazil nuts. Turns out they're too high in copper,
Yeah.
and then so I needed white popcorn. They were already irritated with me that I would ask for white popcorn. They bring out the regular organic popcorn.
Mhm.
I'm like, no, it needs to be white. And I said, do you want to know why? And she's like, okay. Like this. So I couldn't resist. And I said, because it's got vitamin A, which is toxic. Okay. Like, because there's a bunch of us that would come in, probably, that's the natural health world is full of evangelists, actually,
Mhm.
and they want to educate and teach anyway. So I just fit right in with the crazies that she's used to seeing. And yeah, there's no, I go through that store, the health food store. It's all poison. It's just like one poison after another in there.
Yeah.
But I love your point. Is that and that's why I'm kind of quiet despite that experience. I'm pretty quiet. I'm not running after people. I did at the beginning. I really wanted a few influencers to pick it up. Alex Zeck had interviewed Garrett, and that's how I found him. And a lot of people in my world found him. Garrett or Alec turned away, kind of renounced that path because it didn't work for his friends. I'll just
Mhm.
say it that it for the community that they're building, lots of things would have fallen apart.
Mhm.
People's businesses would have
Mhm.
fallen apart
Yeah.
if they stood up and were the champion. I thought there was half a chance, but whatever. I let it go now. I know I sound bitter, but and then so yeah, it's just to be the example, right? That maybe it takes 2, 5, or 10 years to be the example when they see that you're thriving,
Yeah.
and never mind making sense of the mysteries. That's the big thing that I discovered. I thought I would have to just live with all those mysteries like they were spiritual puzzles or something like that.
Mhm.
I was like, no, they're not. There is sense and a striking precision inside that sense. So, I have this picture in my mind that you as a filmmaker are going to be the love your liver champion of the universe. Because I think if this story could be told properly,
Mhm.
with all of your background, not just artistically, not just in understanding screenwriting, not just in all these technical elements, not even just the fact that you've proved to yourself that the love your liver stuff works, but with the whole paradigm of wholeness itself. And this is one of the things that I appreciate about Garrett. He's not like, I just stay in my lane and this is what I do. He was actually open. I offered to show him my work and he said yes. I'm like, wow. Nobody does that. Do you know how many people have refused? Many, and so then I feel like this is going to be such a beautifully told story that could help invite people into it rather, or lessen the shock. Or what do you think? What do you think people would need for this?
Oh, wow, that's a great question, and thank you. I think that okay, if you're talking about filmmaking, making a film, using that as a medium, when you, I know, like, with we respond to, so it's not information. Information isn't what people need, and that's where everybody goes wrong when they're trying to influence someone. They're trying to overload them with information or evidence. That cannot be the focus. The focus has to be in a narrative format like film. Really, if you understand storytelling, what you can do is generate a sense, you can generate an experience for people and a sense of meaning. And if you combine those two together, you can poignantly, it's like a shock. You can create, it's kind of like this. Have you ever seen a film that changed your life before?
Mhm.
I think everybody's at least once had that experience. You watched a movie and you're like, man, I just don't see the world the same way. I feel differently now because you had a rite of passage. You went through a process. It's like the hero's journey, right? You're going through um, this archetypal arch structure that can affect you and change you more at a deeper level. And I think if you could have people go through the experience of the the wholeness and truth that really comes through with what he's worked on and what he's discovered, like how about reality starts making sense to you? How about that? How about your health, instead of all these like, oh, you have this itis and this thing, and you start to realize, no, it's actually just different ways that the damage is manifesting itself in you. You know, and when you start to see it that way, if you could have people have that distinction where it's like if you set a building on fire, you don't know where the fire is going to go. It might go down this one ductwork faster and blow out this glass window on this floor. And then all of a sudden, the medical system calls that a disease, right? They don't say the building's on fire. They say, oh, you have third floor left window disease. You say, like, and so, and what, if you could offer that distinction, I think, to where people see it. And then I know, like, I think he's trying to organize like a clinical trial to redo the mouse studies, if that's
Right.
right. That would be a game changer to like just show people like, wait, what's happening? And you show things like we can directly induce cancer in mice by just injecting them with retinoic acid, which is vitamin A. We can do Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and it's like, wait, what? You can get hair loss from it, and just that alone. And I know he covers a lot more than vitamin A, and that's one of the great things about Carrot is he doesn't have this tight lens where he's trying to stuff everything because of his bottom line into a one-trick pony, right? The genesis came from the low vitamin A thing, but he's very well aware of like copper. I mean, look at all the stuff he's doing with like mouth guards and the architecture of the skull now, learning about that. So I think, kind of like we were talking about, I think he's driven by the truth and by what can be verified.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when I told you the other day, it's like Gurdjieff said, there is no magic, there's only doing. Like what is effective, like what actually works. And then so to me, if somebody could watch, say, a 90-minute film then and have that profound experience of, oh my gosh, something makes sense now because I saw other people go through it. I wasn't preached at. Because that's what you can't do an informational type thing. People would glaze over so fast. It would have to be a journey, taking somebody through like a detective, letting them. There's a saying in film. If you tell an audience that 2 + 2 = 4, they will hate you. But if you tell them 2 + X = 4 and they figure out that X was 2, they'll love you forever. Because you have to let them have the experience of discovery. And I think that's the difference. I think that would be the best. If you use film for that, that would be the biggest way to cause an impact, because ultimately it's a very dramatic story. I mean, the evil behind what has been hidden is unbelievable. I mean, so much so that it's like, I can't believe, I think a lot of it's a lot more conscious too. I think, like the Rockefeller Institute, and really like, if, and I've looked into these like ancient bloodline families and stuff. I mean, do you know about the House of Orange?
No.
Okay. So they're a very powerful old world family. They created the orange carrot on purpose to poison everyone.
Right. To blind the pilots in, was it World War I or II?
Well, it did. No, that was already created before then, but they did encourage that so that it would give them night blindness. Yeah. But it just, I really think that there's a lot more nefariousness to, I mean, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E. Then, like, think about it. I mean, they keep changing, like vitamin B is being changed to nicotinamide, like a poison. This very conscious, you know what I mean? And it's kind of a jarring reality of like, wait, you mean they're poisoning me? It's like, well, look around you. So I think giving people that experience and guiding them through it, that's what you could do with it. If anything was to be done, I think that would be the most potent thing would let everybody have that kind of red pill experience of like, wait, what? And let them go through the emotions of looking at the evidence of sickness and realizing there has to be a solution, and then maybe guiding them through other analogies. But you can't just throw it in someone's face or overwhelm them with information.
Nice.
Preaching. I don't know. How's that sound to you? I mean, that's
Amazing.
okay.
Amazing. So like way beyond anything I could ever conceive of. I wouldn't even go down that road, try to do good on, but I would default to the like information and testimonials, which of course testimonials are always good. And they are a kind of clincher when you're thinking about something for yourself. So no doubt that could be part of it. But the transformation is what you're talking about. Like that's where your expertise. I just see it all over you. I can't not see it. It's like it already happened. So what do you guys in the chat think? Would you all put a little of your hard-earned money towards a film about Love Your Liver to help really show the transformation that's possible? I just think that people are so grateful. People are having babies that we're not able to conceive.
Yep.
Or they're having pregnancies where it's finally not jaundice.
Yep. And getting past terminal cancer, tons of debilitating eczema, all kind. Yeah. I mean, Garrett's growing his hair back.
Right. I know. I was thinking about that this morning.
I mean, you don't see that. You don't really see that. Yeah.
I know. When I met him, he was bald. Now he has hair.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I like how this parallel, like these are not disparate subjects we're talking about. He has operated in this exact same way like you have. And I feel like I have too, that I just want the truth. Mm-hmm. I innocently want it. And I thought that's what everybody in the truth community wanted, because that's what it's called. But it turns out
they wanted their truth. They wanted their truth.
They wanted a truth. They wanted to land somewhere and be done. And then they've got all the members of the cult that agree with them. And, So, but this to me would be like the ultimate truth or film, mm-hmm. right? The ultimate. It's next level. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I can see it all.
I think it is. I think it's a bigger truth or story than almost anything.
There you go. See, because we're all getting support.
The conspiracy is real. It's huge. It's huge. It's unbelievably huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's real life examples that people have, not to mention me. This is something every single day I'm seeing the results. And you mentioned also just the word about, what was the word? It to do with perception, to do with our ability to notice things. We're so used to the mystery of health that we don't even ask that you feel bad. Why? What did you do? What did you eat? And I'd never in my life been methodical. I would just open the cupboard of 2,700 supplements and I'd start chewing on this or that or go with my intuition. I had no idea what anything was doing to me. Same when they were treating me. I was on $1,500 worth of supplements every month. Every month. Every day I'd take probably 60 different capsules. I had literally no idea what any one thing was doing to me. Yeah. But at the end of that, it did, there might have been some help, but it mostly was, I was probably surviving in spite of it. Mm-hmm. Because it is almost all toxic or stopping the detox process.
Yeah, and you realize like anything that gets trendy, there is a tailwind behind it that you don't see, and
exactly.
and they're very good at making things look organic, pun intended, right? That are not. Yeah,
I know. Wow. Yeah. So that's really cool. Elisa said, I'll just read a few more comments if you have time for that. Micah, so although Garrett did never approve of being called bald, he said men with small amount of hair shave it and they're not bald. There you go. Yeah. Big thumbs up from Jackie. And cancer's a big subject. It's basically advanced toxicity for the most part. And that is a very big subject. I probably can't even say that word too many times without getting censored here. But so just advanced toxicity. If I knew that 20 almost 25 years ago, would I have gone down for 3 years and a near-death experience and almost killed by chemotherapy, which I tried to avoid like the plague? I tried for a natural cure, right? It didn't work. My naturopath sends me home to do chemo.
Yeah.
It's a sign. Everything worked for a time, plateaued, and then I'd go back down. So yeah, Zeitgeist was that movie, the game changer for you. Um, and Chris said you're hoping to have time to get yourself back out of a diagnosis with the low VA. Yeah, sorry to hear, but those diagnoses are they're kind of dangerous. On the one hand, even after my biopsies, I got way sicker. I was in better shape before diagnosing. So unless you this is what Garrett would say, unless you intend to do something different after your diagnosis, then don't bother with those things.
When you realize it's pointless, I mean, but that comes from a different. We're raised with this myth. Cancer is like a magical mythological creature. Sorry, let's not use
Yeah,
that
like a
word.
unicorn. Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's because it has to become so nefarious. I'm sorry, not nefarious. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like effervescent. It has to be this almost half real thing that's in another realm, and that's how it is. It's like, oh man, and then you put all the labels. Oh, you have this type of cancer. You have this type, and it becomes a magical. No one understands it, so it's kind of like the, pandemic time. It becomes people don't understand. They're just afraid. It just becomes fear. Oh my gosh, I have this thing. I have to do something about it. And it's life and death. And then as you go through that step by step as recommended, they can guarantee the outcome. Because this system, it's systematically set up to where once you get on that carousel, they know exactly where it's going to go.
Exactly. Yeah, it made my oncologist so happy he ended his own life.
Yeah, sorry, I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, intense. I'd like to use that for drama.
That is, it's very dramatic. No, it's
Yeah, craziness. Wow. So, well, thank you so much, Micah. This has been a very satisfying conversation. I do recommend joining the House of Free Will to catch the two that we're going deep into Gurdjieff and doing some comparisons and getting really into the weeds. I wasn't even sure if it would translate to people that weren't totally, already into it and geeks like we are, but we're hearing some really good feedback because why? We have deep members that are going beneath the surface. And, not everybody in the House of Free Will has gone love your liver, but a lot of them have, actually. A striking number without me trying to convince or anything. It was just they were in the same position as we were where other things didn't work. And you're still pursuing the truth because that's important for the rest of your life and your health and the integration of that. So I was going to just quickly grab a link to the House of Free Will application, which I did not share below, but you can also find it at my website. I always remember that I didn't share it at this exact point in the live stream. So let me see if I can go back and actually remember that. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Hypermetabolic detox. I'm not sure what that was. Same lady said it's so easy to give up your power and hand it over to the medical cartel so they can save you. Yeah, exactly. Once you're in their hands, if you make yourself vulnerable to them, it's pretty hard. I had to finally say, okay, I don't go to doctors when I get sick anymore. Because they would throw me in the hospital, they would scare me, Beth, your cancer's coming back, and this is a very bad sign, and you need all these antiviral drugs that you're allergic to, but we're just gonna put you in an isolation room and wish you all the best there. So yeah, you can't give over. And thank you very much. I am way better, and thank God for Garrett, because I think I was definitely heading in the same direction. I was having breakdowns. Full stop on digestion, full stop on sleep at times, although I had some breakthroughs, but not consistent. Yeah.
Can I add something to what you, like before, because I think it's important for the people asking questions right now. I personally think that your series with Garrett is the best, most definitive way to learn about all this.
Oh, thank you.
your interview. So if you want to share that link, because I've watched all of his live streams and tons of podcasts, and I just feel like you did a great job getting the whole enchilada. And what, in like 3 or 4 interviews, it's like you've really, because you knew the system in your head, you were able to like help, between the two of you. I felt like it was a really good, succinct, potent. I've shared that with a lot of people now because I'm like, hey, instead of me trying to explain this to you, like go at your own pace, and rewatch. And I just thought yours was actually fantastic. I would highly recommend that.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm gonna pass that along to Garrett. I
Yeah.
sort of bullied him. It was one of those like,
Oh,
"You you need" no, that's not fair to say. Like, I just suggested it because we were always there on the front line with people asking the questions, and you'd have to send them to 231,
yeah,
live streams to
yeah,
get the gist of it and
yeah,
stuff like that. So yeah, this was exactly, if you could call it any agenda that I had, was to make it a little bit of a container, even though it's still 6 hours of here. I'm just sharing these out quickly. Those are the first two. So if you find the first two, you're going to find the next
yeah.
one. And I believe there was a third one. We did food basics again because there's been a lot of updates around that. And I have a few more ideas also that might come down the pipe or pike, however you say that expression. I never know. So yeah, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. It's yeah, it's not enough just to shock people. You want them to learn and grow. And I like how you said earlier also, like they need to really be ready and wanting what you have, so thirsty, you said,
Yeah, yeah,
like
thirsty.
that there's actual prosody, because they can ask you your advice but they don't want it. It comes from two different places. They really just want to affirm or give them something to push up against. Then they can make you the enemy or you the bad guy.
Do you know that quote from Faust? A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
No.
It's just, you realize, like, no matter what, like if the person's already has their mind made up, or it's all pointless.
Exactly.
It's a waste of energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's so much fertile ground in the world that I would
Yeah.
rather hold out for the rare soul. And you guys are out there. That's the
Yeah.
beautiful thing. Otherwise, I'd be all alone right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to set up I keep threatening maybe I have to hire you to help me with my intros and outros
Okay.
sometime, but this is what it is right now. And yeah, wonderful guest. Definitely. We appreciate you. And no doubt I'll have you back on again. Come see us in the House of Free Will. Things are going really neat there. All right, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day. This is always clunky, so forgive me. Bye for now. Lots of love.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my true guide, Lord and supporter of all, forever free from identity. Be well, I'm dwelling in you. Be well, I am dwelling in you. Be well, I am dwelling in you. rigor.Mental, Gurdjieff Maheshwara, Paramatma Jai.